I'm Emma Apatu. I'm a professor at McMaster University in Canada. In the Bitcoin world, I am the founder of Dream Grad Academy. It is a new educational startup that helps people navigate this information age that we're in. And we believe that Bitcoin is a very important tool to help fuel people's dreams.
Hi, Dr. Emma. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. Thank you so much for agreeing to answer 21 questions.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we get started, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, sure. So I'm Emma Apatu. I'm a professor at McMaster University in Canada. In the Bitcoin world, I am the founder of Dream Grad Academy. It is a new educational startup that helps people navigate this information age that we're in. And we believe that Bitcoin is a very important tool to help fuel people's dreams. And we also help with work and life coaching. We partnered with bitcoinmentor.io. This is an educational company by BTC Sessions and Mike Cook. And so we help people on their Bitcoin education journey all the way from getting that Bitcoin off of exchange to self-custody. Also, I am on the Bitcoin Coalition Canada on the Education and Public Engagement Committee, and also an advisor to Bitcoin is Better, a nonprofit trying to spread the message of Bitcoin around the world, and particularly in the US as well.
Wow. When do you have time is the question.
Somehow everything fits together. So right now, it just making it work.
Very nice. So on Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions, the goal is to get through 21 questions in 10 minutes.
Okay, so if I go over the 10 minutes, does this mean that this block or this interview gets rejected?
No. Although that would be quite savage, something to consider. I guess, like, if I do like a second season of this, I may actually consider doing that. That's pretty savage. I like that.
Well, good to know that this is an accommodating ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, like, I find that most Bitcoiners enjoy talking and sharing, which I totally love. And the result is that I'm going off on a tangent. I'll get it out of my system and then we're good to go. But the result is that interviews can be quite long as well. So I thought, why not create a little challenge to see if it's possible to respond to questions in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So let's get to it. I've got the first question. I've got the timer here. It says 10 minutes. And start. A friend says, I just bought Bitcoin for the first time. What's the first thing you tell them in response?
Excellent. Is it still on exchange? If so, let's talk about getting it off of exchange.
How would you explain a UTXO to a person new to Bitcoin?
I would say you could think of Bitcoin as cash, and essentially, when you receive Bitcoin, you're receiving kind of chunks of Bitcoin, and this sits in your wallet. And essentially, when you then go to build a transaction, you have to put all these bills together. And the more bills you have, the more expensive these transactions can be based on the busyness of the Bitcoin network and the data. So you really want to look to consolidate your UTXOs.
What's a common myth about health?
That there is a silver bullet. I don't think that there is. I think our health is constantly changing, and we need to do multiple things to keep ourselves healthy.
What are your thoughts on the emergence of decentralized education versus traditional education? So, for example, courses in economics offered by Saifedean.com versus a typical econ course offered by a university.
Yeah, I think that universities, they're going to be dematerialized in some ways because of the internet. We're already seeing that with Udemy, Coursera, etc. And so I think um, having educators have a place on the internet where they can offer their services would help to lower the cost and to some degree also the competition as well. So I think there's just going to be a proliferation of decentralized education in the future, and I think this is good for universities and colleges so that they can compete more.
Yep. Pick one. This is such a Toronto question, in my opinion.
Okay.
Soca, dancehall, hip hop, R&B, rock, bhangra or East Asian music, country or other. And if other,
Wow.
be specific.
Okay. I would say I like a little bit of all of that, but most recently I really started enjoying Afro beats.
Hmm.
So I would say other, I guess.
You grew up playing basketball. Which position did you play?
Yeah, I'm at this really odd height where I'm not considerably tall, but maybe a little taller than the average lady. So I used to play shooting guard, and sometimes I'd end up like guarding small forwards in the paint, which is never fun because they're usually like
Nope.
5 inches taller.
I can relate. As a Canadian, can you pronounce the words and I'll spell them out? SORRY, OUT, and ABOUT?
Okay, so oh, sorry. What was the second one?
OUT?
Out and about.
So you don't have like a thick Canadian accent.
I
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
It's interesting that you say that because when I taught in Florida, a number of students would say, "Yeah, you do say about, and you do say a as well."
What was your Bitcoin aha moment?
I think for me, realizing the relationship between the integrity of money and health outcomes.
How does one make the leap from traditional academia to Bitcoin?
I would say I probably haven't made a full leap. I think I'm walking over a bridge still because I think it's important for academia to play a part in creating the knowledge base around Bitcoin to an extent. So I still have an affiliation and I'm still working with students in the traditional sense, but also having a foot in the Bitcoin space.
What is a common misconception about Canada?
That is always constantly cold. Well, admittedly, maybe in some areas, yeah, that's true. But like as you know, for example, in Toronto, we do have nice, warm, I was going to say winters, summers. Um, but yeah, I think that's a common misconception is that it's just everywhere in the country is just totally cold all the time.
And you say Toronto and not Toronto.
I guess I say Toronto. Toronto.
Toronto.
Toronto.
The Bitcoin ecosystem is all about FOSS, so free and open source software. What's one project that isn't FOSS but still respectable?
Yeah, so I'm not a developer, but I do think that GitHub is a very important tool for developers. But to my knowledge, I think to some extent it's still closed source. So, if GitHub ever gets, threatened in any way, that would be really bad. So I think uh, that would be something that I would highlight.
What is your favorite hardware wallet slash sliding device?
Yes, there's so many. I really like all the stuff that CoinKite puts out. I would say a really neat one is TapSigner. I think for kind of maybe everyday transactions, you could keep your private keys off of your phone and on that card. I think that's cool. I really enjoy Cold Card. I think that's a great device, whatever kind of version, the MK4 or the Q that most recently came out that has like the QR code scanner and a bunch of really neat features.
So, your family background is Vincentian. Are there any projects in St. Vincent focused on Bitcoin adoption?
Yeah, so part of my family background is Vincentian,
Oh,
yes,
part.
and yes, part Vincy massive represent here. So I admittedly am not so familiar with what's going on locally. I would love to learn more, but I do know that I think it's getflash.io that's really working on payments on the Lightning Network.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
an app, and I think they're spreading through the Caribbean, so that would include St. Vincent.
Very nice. How could Bitcoin as a philosophy strengthen public health?
Yes, I think the ethos around personal responsibility, self sovereignty is very important. As we know, health, I would argue, in some respects, is an individual endeavor. And so just making sure that people really kind of appreciate, the personal responsibility and respecting that everyone has different things that they need to do to kind of protect their health. I think it's
Yeah.
when you are disrespecting or putting someone else's personal property in harm, that's where there is a problem. But I just think if we just remember that in health, and since I'm in public health, that we need to just recognize that um, ultimately health is about the individuals, the families that we create, the communities, the organizations. And so, there you could argue that these group entities have well-being, but ultimately it comes to the individuals and their sovereignty. So I think that's very important.
Very nice. Respect. Which country would you most like to visit?
Oh, there's so many. I think I would really want to go to Turkey. I think Turkey seems like such a fascinating place, just like geographically, being just that position near Asia, Europe, the history. Admittedly, too, I do have some friends there, so I'd love to visit as well at some point.
Who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Whew, this is a tough one, and this has really
Hmm.
sparked some like really heated debates. But I will have to go with Michael Jordan. I think he 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 brought a certain swagger, if you will, to the game that oh dear.
It's the timer. We could chill now. And please indulge me on Jordan. I happen to agree with your response.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he has like a certain swagger that he brought to the game that I feel like many other players after him, like you could argue like the LeBrons, the Stephen Currys, you name it, kind of replicated like his ethic that he like brought to the game. And like he may just do it very, sexy, the Nike symbol.
Hmm.
I think he just has such a unique place in basketball history, and his game is just phenomenal. So I would have to say Jordan.
Yeah, I agree. Although when he went to the Washington Wizards, I couldn't look. I was like, I need to keep an image of him.
Yeah.
Um, how is the Bitcoin scene in Canada or specifically in Toronto?
Yeah, I think in Canada it's very vibrant. We have, I would argue, some of the best builders, educators in the Bitcoin space. And in Toronto specifically, there's a number of Bitcoiners. I think adoption is moving. I think that there's this momentum building
Yeah.
in Toronto and Canada. Um, the Bitcoin is in the air. We just need more people to kind of catch on.
What problem does Dream Academy solve?
Yeah, I would say right now we're focusing on Bitcoin education for women. And so just creating a space where women feel comfortable to learn about this new monetary technology and to build community with other women. And also just to support people during the Bitcoin journey. As you know, like when you first fall down the rabbit hole, it can be very isolating because it shifts so many of your prevailing views. And so I think just being a supportive partner in people's Bitcoin journey is really what we're trying to fill.
Yep. Back to basketball.
Oh,
Did you ever trash talk your opponents on the court?
that's a funny one. Not really. However, if I was playing someone I knew, yes, then there'll probably be some interesting banter, just to, spice up the game, but typically no.
Some words. How does the proof of work concept apply to health?
Oh my goodness. I think it's everything. I think, I was talking about the importance of self-sovereignty to health. And I think at the individual level, the thoughts, the habits that you keep on repeating in your life become, I would argue, the proof of work that then
Hmm.
results into some of your health outcomes. And so, again, I sound very individualistic here. Health is not shaped just by individualistic factors, but they do play a major role. And I think, yeah, it definitely shapes your proof of work or, again, health outcomes.
Yeah, I hear you about understanding who you are and what your needs are as an individual. I remember a few years ago, my social media was just peppered with veganism. And I thought maybe there's something to this. I tried it for about a month. My hair started to fall out. My
Mm,
nails started to break. Admittedly, I'm not a chef. I'm not a chemist. I didn't understand what to cook, but I realized that for my lifestyle, it wasn't for me. I've moved on and I feel much better. So yeah, I think
yeah,
it's good to keep in mind.
I could definitely relate with that one too. I've experimented with different, like, I don't want to call them diets, but ways to eat. And like you, like, I found like I thrive better when I have kind of more of the animal fats and so forth and proteins in my diet. So yeah.
Yep. And last question, and this is the surprise question. How was the Canadian Bitcoin conference?
Oh, I love this question. um,
Save the best for last.
yes, it was incredible. We had Bitcoiners from across the country, but also from the United States as well. They had this
Oh,
like
wow.
big hockey game. Yes, I think the American team
Nice.
won. Um, but I went to the first conference last year, and so this was the second one. And just to see like the breadth of like kind of talks that happened was amazing. Like, yes, there were the technical ones, but also, for example, like Get Based is doing some great kind of like documentary films around what's happening with Bitcoin in places around the world. So that was really cool. There was also a women's panel as well.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and there were just so many amazing ladies on the panel, and the range of ladies. I was also on the panel as well too, and we had some like youngster as well was on the panel to us who are we'll say a bit older. um,
Yeah. Us
but
mature ladies.
yes, and just to like hear everyone's story was amazing on the panel. So it was really nice that they featured women and just the connections, like the ecosystem builders. Yeah, it was wonderful. I'm so glad that I went and like really thank the organizers for putting it on.
So we're in overtime. I've got a follow-up bonus question. Um, from the Canadian speakers who were there, did you sort of sense or did they express a commonality, something within the Canadian context that makes Bitcoin appealing to them?
Hmm. I think it's the sense of freedom. I think it's the sense of freedom was like a thread that definitely weaved through a lot of the talks. And
Yeah.
I really got the sense too that like I think there's this good nexus now. And so Canadian Bitcoiners are building for Bitcoiners, which is great too. And I thought that that was another interesting thing that was highlighted during the conference.
Very nice.
But also, what was wonderful is Bitcoin Coalition Canada as well was featured on the main stage, and to hear their mission around kind of helping to move the policy needle, I think was very important, and spreading education across the country was another vital point that was put across.
Yeah. And okay, last question. Do you perceive that showing open support for Bitcoin is now sort of politicized? It's become a political topic?
I think so, but I think unfortunately, to some extent, it's being clouded with like crypto, which is a really unfortunate thing because the public listens to these conversations and they lump crypto with Bitcoin and get confused around what Bitcoin really is. And then sometimes the political narratives spin crypto to whatever they kind of want it to be or make it seem very spammy.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. One of my big fears is the conflation between, so you mentioned Bitcoin and crypto, but when the CBDCs roll out, the conflation that happens, like it's all the same thing, so to speak,
Mm,
with the average person who understandably doesn't have sufficient time or other resources to sit down and understand what the differences are between them. I fear that the average person will just conflate everything and say, "Oh, the
right.
CBDC is fine because it's crypto or it's Bitcoin."
Right. Yeah. I think that, yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. And I think that's why education is so important. And yeah, yeah.
We agree. Well, thank you so much for answering 21 plus questions. Before we close out, can you remind people where to find you on social media?
Yeah. So again, thank you for this interview. Clearly, I did not say between in the time limits, but people can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Emma Patu. On Twitter, it's Dream GRD Academy. And also the website www.dreamgradacademy.com, and on bitcoinmentor.io. You'll click on like mentors, and I'm listed there as well.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.